The story begins on a quiet morning at the film set. Cameras were being arranged, lights tested, and crew members hurried across the floor carrying cables and props. Everyone was busy, everyone was stressed because this was no ordinary shoot. This was a major production, one that would be remembered for years. And in the middle of this whirlwind stood Ana de Armas, dressed in her costume, her mind buzzing with nervous thoughts. She had been in many films before, but something about this project felt different. There was pressure, expectation, and eyes watching her every move. But the real center of attention that day was not her. It was Keanu Reeves. People whispered about him constantly. They said he was the star who carried himself like an ordinary man, never arrogant, never demanding. Some said he would sit with the crew during lunch instead of hiding in a private trailer. Others said he would quietly help stagehands move equipment when no one else was looking. Ana had heard these stories, but she wondered if they were exaggerated. Surely someone with his fame and status couldn't be that humble. Surely the stories were too perfect, too polished. Still, curiosity stirred inside her. That morning, the first scene was a difficult one. Long hours of rehearsing had left everyone drained. Ana felt her body tense with each mistake, each retake. The director grew impatient, and the crew sighed quietly, wishing the day would move faster. She began to feel the weight of judgment pressing against her, making her doubt herself. And then, in the middle of all this chaos, something happened. Something so small, yet so powerful, that it changed the entire rhythm of the day. A prop fell. It wasn't just any prop, but a heavy piece of equipment meant to decorate the background of the scene. It slipped from the hands of a young assistant who had been carrying it across the set. The sound was loud, sharp, and in that instant the assistant froze with panic. Everyone turned their eyes toward him. Some frowned, some shook their heads. Ana herself felt the second-hand embarrassment. She expected anger, shouting, maybe even the director scolding him in front of everyone. But then, before any of that could happen, Keanu moved. He didn't hesitate. He didn't roll his eyes. He didn't look annoyed like so many others might have. Instead, he walked over calmly, bent down, and picked up the fallen prop himself. No cameras were rolling. No fans were watching. This was not a staged moment. This was real. He lifted it carefully and handed it back to the assistant, who looked pale and embarrassed. Keanu placed a gentle hand on the assistant's shoulder and said in a soft voice, "It's all right, accidents happen. Don't worry about it." The entire set went silent for a heartbeat. No one expected the star of the film, the one person who could have ignored it, to step in with such kindness. Ana felt her chest tighten as she watched. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She had expected distance, pride, maybe even irritation from someone of his status. Instead, she saw humility. She saw patience. She saw a man who refused to see himself as above anyone else. It was so different from what she had grown used to in this industry. For the rest of that day, something shifted in the air. The crew worked with lighter steps. The assistant, who had nearly broken down, found the strength to keep going. And Ana, who had been feeling the weight of her own mistakes, felt a strange sense of comfort. If someone like Keanu could treat people with such gentleness, then maybe it was all right for her to stumble sometimes too. Maybe she didn't need to carry the burden of perfection all by herself. As the sun began to set and the day of filming drew to an end, Ana replayed that moment again and again in her head. She wondered why it touched her so deeply. Maybe because it was so unexpected. Maybe because it revealed a truth she had always wanted to believe, that real strength comes not from power, but from kindness. But she didn't know then that this was only the beginning. What she had witnessed was just the first glimpse of a side of Keanu that very few ever saw. The next days would bring challenges, moments of exhaustion, and even heartbreak. Yet within all of it, Keanu's humble gestures would continue to appear, surprising everyone and teaching silent lessons about respect and humanity. Ana would soon discover that sometimes the smallest actions can change the biggest hearts. And when the time came, she too would be faced with a moment of choice, a moment that would test her own courage and compassion. This was not just a story about fame or film. This was a story about being human, about what it means to truly see others, and about the power of humility in a world that often forgets it. The next morning began with tension hanging thick in the air. The crew arrived early, yawning but determined. The director had announced a long sequence to be shot, one that involved delicate timing, intense dialogue, and strict coordination. People whispered in corners about how stressful it would be. Some even worried they might not finish before the deadline, and Ana felt all of it pressing against her like invisible weight. Her mind raced with lines, expressions, and movements. She kept telling herself she had to get everything right. One mistake could cost the production hours, maybe even days. But as she stepped onto the set, she noticed Keanu already there. He wasn't isolated in his trailer, away from the chaos. Instead, he was standing among the crew, asking questions about the scene, complimenting someone's work on the lighting, even helping to shift a small piece of furniture into place. It was strange. Stars his size usually walked in last, when everything was ready, almost like kings arriving to a throne. Yet here he was, blending in as if he were just another worker on the floor. Anna felt a quiet curiosity rise again. What drove him to be like this? What secret rhythm guided his choices? The hook came quickly. The first take of the long sequence began. Cameras rolled. Anna delivered her lines with focus, while Keanu moved with calm intensity. The crew leaned forward, watching every detail. Then, just as the scene reached its emotional peak, disaster struck. One of the overhead lights flickered, then went completely dark. It didn't just ruin the shot, it left a part of the stage in shadows, impossible to continue. The director cursed under his breath, the camera crew groaned, and the set froze in frustration. The man in charge of lighting rushed to fix it, climbing up the ladder with shaky hands. Everyone's eyes were on him. He was new, hired only a week earlier, and already people doubted if he could handle the pressure. His movements were clumsy, nervous. Anna could see his face dripping with sweat as he adjusted the wires. The director barked, "Faster, we're wasting time." The poor man's hands trembled, and for a moment it looked like he might fall. And then it happened again, that same unexpected choice, that same quiet defiance of pride. Before anyone could react, Keanu stepped forward and said, "Hold on." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the entire set. Everyone turned. Keanu walked over to the base of the ladder, placed his hands firmly on it, and said to the lighting man, "Don't worry, I've got you. Take your time, you're safe." A hush fell across the crew. They watched, stunned, as the most famous person on that stage stood there, holding the ladder steady like an ordinary worker, giving courage to someone who had nearly broken under the pressure. The man above blinked in shock, then nodded gratefully, finishing his adjustments with steadier hands. When the light came back on and the shadows disappeared, a quiet cheer rose from the crew. The tension broke, and even the director's anger softened into relief. Anna stared, her heart pounding. It wasn't the act itself, holding a ladder wasn't grand or heroic, but it was the meaning. It was the willingness to lower himself, to step into another's fear and carry some of it for them. She felt her throat tighten as she realized something deeper. Humility wasn't weakness. It was strength so rare, it almost felt like magic. And yet she couldn't help wondering why. Why did he care so much? Why did he choose to act when so many would have looked away? But the day was far from over. As filming resumed, something unusual started to happen. Anna began to notice that others were changing too. Crew members who had been cold or impatient started treating each other with more patience. People smiled more often, spoke softer words, and even the nervous lighting man stood taller, as if he had been given permission to breathe. It was as though Keanu's gestures had infected the entire room, a quiet storm of respect spreading from one person to another. Still, not everyone was pleased. Behind the scenes, one of the producers watched with narrowed eyes. He was a man used to control, used to running things his way. And he didn't like how the crew seemed to respect Keanu more than him. Whispers of jealousy began to stir, and in the corners of the set, Anna overheard small fragments of conversation. Words like "too perfect" and "putting on a show." Doubt like a shadow began to creep in. Was Keanu truly that kind? Or was it just an act, a mask carefully built to win people over? Anna hated the thought, but she couldn't deny the question tugging at her mind. She had been fooled before in this industry, seen people who pretended to be humble only when cameras were around. And yet the moments she had witnessed didn't feel staged. They felt raw, unplanned. Still, the doubt planted a seed of suspense. The twist came later that evening. Filming was nearly done, and everyone was tired. Anna sat by herself on a wooden crate, sipping water, trying to calm her buzzing thoughts. And then she heard footsteps. She looked up and saw Keanu walking quietly to the far edge of the set, where no one else was watching. Curiosity gripped her. She stood slowly and followed, keeping her distance. What she saw made her heart ache. There, in the shadows behind the equipment, Keanu was speaking to the same young assistant from the day before, the one who had dropped the prop. The boy looked ashamed, head bowed, as if still carrying guilt. Keanu spoke gently. "Listen, you're not here by accident. You belong here. Mistakes don't erase your worth." The boy nodded, tears shining in his eyes. Keanu smiled softly and added, I've made mistakes too, bigger than you think, but people gave me chances. I want you to keep going, all right? Anna froze. It wasn't for show. No one else was around. No cameras, no crew, no applause. It was real, honest, and private. She felt a rush of emotion swell inside her, so strong she had to press her hand against her chest to steady herself. She realized then that this wasn't an act. This was who he truly was. And yet, as powerful as that moment was, something darker lingered at the edges. She saw a shadow move behind the equipment, the jealous producer, watching quietly, his jaw tight with anger. And in that moment, Anna understood something dangerous. Kindness can inspire, but it can also threaten those who thrive on control. Keanu's humility, so pure and unexpected, had already lit a spark of conflict. And sooner or later, that spark would ignite into something far greater. As Anna walked back toward the set, her mind whirled with questions. How far would Keanu's humility go, and how far would others go to tear it down? The following day began with an uneasy silence. The crew went about their tasks, but something felt different. The air was heavier, like a storm waiting to break. Whispers ran through the corners of the set, but no one spoke openly. Anna could sense it. People were watching Keanu more closely, almost suspiciously, as if waiting to see whether his kindness would slip, whether his calm mask would finally crack. She didn't like the shift in atmosphere. It reminded her of other sets, where jealousy and rivalry poisoned the air until even friendships turned sour. Keanu walked in quietly, his face calm as always. He greeted the crew by name, nodded to the camera operators, and even stopped to ask one of the costume designers about her sick child. There was nothing grand about his gestures, nothing staged. And yet Anna noticed how the jealous producer's eyes followed every move, sharp and calculating. The man's face held the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. Anna's stomach tightened. Something was coming, though she couldn't yet tell what. The hook arrived during the afternoon shoot. The director had planned a complicated action sequence, long dialogue, sudden movement, and fragile props that needed perfect timing. Everyone was nervous. One mistake could mean hours of delay. Anna stood beside Keanu, rehearsing her lines under her breath when the director shouted, "Action!" The scene unfolded smoothly at first. Keanu delivered his lines with a calm intensity that pulled everyone in. Anna felt herself caught in the flow, her nerves fading as she matched his energy. But just as the scene reached its climax, something strange happened. A chair in the background, one of the props, suddenly collapsed. It wasn't supposed to. The crash startled everyone, breaking the rhythm. The director yelled, "Cut!" Frustration echoed through the set. But Keanu turned sharply, his expression shifting, not angry but concerned. He stepped forward and examined the broken chair. The wood wasn't just cracked, it looked tampered with. Nails loosened, joints weakened deliberately. Anna saw the flicker in his eyes. He understood. This wasn't an accident. A ripple of tension spread through the crew. Someone whispered, "Sabotage." No one wanted to say it out loud, but everyone felt it. The jealous producer stood at the back, arms folded, his expression unreadable. Keanu didn't accuse anyone. Instead, he knelt down, checked that no one had been hurt, and then carefully picked up the broken pieces himself, as if protecting the crew from shame. He simply said, "We'll fix it and try again." Anna couldn't believe it. Most stars would have demanded answers, shouted at the crew, maybe even stormed off set. But Keanu chose humility again, choosing to shield others from blame even when sabotage was clear. Yet his calm only deepened the mystery. Why did he refuse to expose the truth? Did he know more than he showed? The twist came later, during a short break. Anna found herself standing near Keanu by the catering table. She hesitated, then asked softly, "Why didn't you say anything? You saw it was no accident." Keanu looked at her, his eyes steady but gentle. He answered, "Sometimes, pointing fingers doesn't solve anything. What matters is how we respond, not how loudly we accuse." His words lingered inside her like an echo. She wanted to ask more, but something stopped her. She realized there was depth behind his calm, something rooted in pain or experience. It wasn't just wisdom, it was survival. That night, another unexpected moment pulled her deeper. As most of the crew packed up, Anna stayed behind to practice lines. When she finally stepped outside, she spotted Keanu at the far edge of the lot, away from everyone. He was sitting on a bench, alone, holding a small notebook in his hands. Curiosity tugged at her again. She walked closer, careful not to intrude. His voice reached her before she saw the words. He was reading softly, almost whispering from the notebook. Not scripts, not lines, but words of gratitude. Phrases like, "Thank you for another day. Thank you for the people who stand with me. Thank you for the chance to keep going." Anna froze. It wasn't a performance. It was a ritual. Keanu was reminding himself, grounding himself in humility when the world expected arrogance. Suddenly, the pieces connected in her mind. His kindness wasn't random. It came from discipline, from scars, from a choice made again and again. And that choice made him different. But she wasn't the only one watching. In the distance, half hidden behind the shadows of the trailers, the jealous producer stood once again. This time his expression was darker, almost cruel, and Anna felt a chill crawl up her spine. She realized the truth. Keanu's humility wasn't just inspiring people. It was provoking someone's rage. The next day, the crew would discover something that changed everything. Equipment missing, schedules rearranged, small details out of place. And while most would shrug it off as accidents, Anna would begin to suspect the truth. Someone was trying to break Keanu. Yet what none of them knew was that Keanu had already faced storms far worse. And the way he would handle what came next would leave Anna and everyone else shaken to their core. The fourth day on set began with confusion. People moved slower, whispering about strange problems that had appeared overnight. A cart of costumes was found tipped over, delicate fabrics smeared with dirt. One of the microphones had vanished, and the sound team spent an hour searching before finding it tossed behind a pile of crates. Small things, but enough to disrupt the flow of work. The director grew restless, pacing with a sharp edge in his voice. Anna noticed how unease spread like smoke. The crew glanced at each other suspiciously, as if wondering who among them could be careless enough to let these mistakes happen. But she had seen enough to know better. These weren't accidents. Someone was pulling strings, deliberately trying to shake the foundation of the set. And though no one said it out loud, she could feel the weight of one thought pressing in the silence. Was it aimed at Keanu? The hook came quickly. During a key rehearsal, a stage light suddenly swung loose from above. It dropped with terrifying speed, crashing down just a few feet from where Keanu had been standing. The sound thundered through the room, leaving everyone frozen. Gasps filled the air, and for a second Anna's heart stopped. If he had been just a step to the left, the light would have crushed him. The crew rushed forward, some checking the broken light, others asking if Keanu was hurt. He shook his head calmly, brushing dust from his jacket, as if near disaster didn't shake him at all. "I'm fine," he said simply. But Anna's hands trembled as she realized how close they had come to disaster. The director raged at the crew, demanding answers. The lighting team swore they had checked everything twice. The tension boiled, but once again, Keanu refused to throw blame. He stepped in front of the shouting and said, "Enough! Let's not destroy each other. Let's fix it and keep moving." But Anna saw it, the flicker in his eyes, brief and sharp. He knew this wasn't negligence. This was sabotage, and still he chose silence. That night, unable to hold back her questions, Anna found him sitting alone near the trailers, a cup of coffee in his hands. She sat beside him, the weight of the day heavy in her chest. After a long pause, she whispered, "Why don't you speak out? Someone is trying to hurt you. We all saw it." Keanu's gaze lowered to the ground, quiet for a moment. Then he said softly, "Because pointing to darkness doesn't always bring light. Sometimes the best way to answer cruelty is by refusing to let it change who you are." The words hit her harder than she expected. But beneath them, she heard something unspoken, a history, a story buried in scars. She wanted to ask, to know what pain had shaped such humility, but before she could, he smiled faintly and changed the subject. The twist arrived the next morning. The jealous producer, who had lingered in shadows, finally stepped forward with a poisonous smile. In front of the crew, he spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Isn't it strange how accidents keep happening whenever Keanu's around? Maybe it's not sabotage. Maybe he just attracts disaster." The crew froze, glancing between them. Suspicion flickered in some eyes, doubt in others. Anna felt anger burn in her chest, but Keanu remained calm. He didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he looked the producer in the eye and said, "If you think I'm the problem, then blame me. But don't blame them," and he gestured toward the crew. The humility of his response left the room silent. But the seed had been planted. The producer smirked, satisfied. He hadn't won openly, but he had spread poisoned doubt that could grow in hidden corners of people's minds. Anna's heart ached as she watched. It wasn't fair. Keanu gave respect, patience, and kindness, yet the very thing that made him strong was now being used against him. She wanted to defend him, to shout at everyone that they were blind, but Keanu's calm hand on her shoulder stopped her. Later, during lunch, she caught him alone again. This time, she pressed harder. "Why do you let them twist it against you? Why do you let someone like him win?" Keanu looked at her, his eyes heavy with memory. "Because fighting pride with pride doesn't end the cycle. Someone has to break it. Someone has to be different." The words settled deep inside her. She thought of her own journey, the times she had fought to prove herself, the battles of ego, the sharpness of competition. Had she been feeding the same cycle he spoke of? The thought unsettled her, but it also inspired her. But the suspense wasn't over. As the weeks stretched on, the sabotage grew bolder. Scripts went missing, props were misplaced. And during one scene, the floor was left slick, nearly causing Anna herself to fall. Keanu caught her just in time, his grip firm around her arm. For a moment, their eyes locked, and she felt more than gratitude. She felt connection. He wasn't just saving her from a fall, he was shielding her from the unseen storm surrounding them. And then came the twist that no one expected. One evening, after the crew wrapped up, Anna overheard voices near the back lot. She recognized the jealous producer's sharp tone, but the other voice was unfamiliar, low, hushed, carrying menace. She crept closer, hiding behind a trailer. The producer whispered, "It has to look like an accident. One more mistake and they'll start to question if he's worth the risk." The other man grunted in agreement. Anna's blood ran cold. This wasn't just jealousy anymore. It was a plan, and if they succeeded, Keanu could be in real danger. Her heart pounded as she stepped back into the shadows, her mind spinning. She had to warn him. But how? If she told him, would he even listen? Or would his humility stop him from protecting himself? She realized with a chill that she wasn't just part of a film anymore. She was standing inside a story of sabotage, betrayal, and danger, one that could shatter everything if she didn't act. And yet deep inside, another question burned brighter. Why did Keanu refuse to defend himself? What past had carved this strength, and what would it cost him now? The answer she knew would come soon, and when it did, it would change everything. The next day began under a sky that felt strangely heavy. The sun was bright, but the light seemed harsh, almost warning. The crew moved with an uneasiness that no one spoke about. Rumors were spreading faster now, whispers of sabotage, of danger, of things deliberately going wrong. Yet no one dared confront the truth. The director grew impatient, producers grew restless, and the air felt brittle, like glass ready to shatter. Anna carried the secret she had overheard the night before like a stone in her chest. She could still hear the jealous producer's voice, still see the shadows moving as he plotted against Keanu. But fear gnawed at her. Should she tell Keanu? What if he brushed it off with his usual calm, refusing to protect himself? What if speaking out only made her the next target? The questions haunted her as she stepped onto the set that morning. The hook struck early. The day's schedule included a dangerous scene, a stunt involving falling debris, timed perfectly with the actor's movements. Safety checks were supposed to be strict, rehearsed again and again. But as Anna watched the crew prepare, something felt wrong. The ropes looked worn, the supports looser than they should be. Her stomach twisted. She tried to speak up, but before she could, the director shouted, "Action!" The scene unfolded. Anna moved through her lines, Keanu beside her, calm and focused. Then in a sudden rush, the ropes gave way too early. Heavy props came crashing down with terrifying force. The sound tore through the set like thunder. Anna froze in shock, but Keanu reacted instantly. He grabbed her and pulled her out of the way just as a massive wooden beam slammed onto the spot where she had been standing. Chaos erupted. Crew members screamed, rushing to stop the scene. Dust filled the air, lights flickered, and the set descended into confusion. Anna clung to Keanu, her heart racing. She realized in that moment how close she had come to being crushed. If not for him, she might not be standing at all. The director shouted orders, demanding answers. But in the middle of the uproar, Anna saw the jealous producer standing back, silent, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Her blood turned cold. She knew. He had gone too far. This wasn't just sabotage anymore. It was an attempt to destroy Keanu, maybe even endanger lives. But then came the twist that caught her off guard. As medics checked the area and the crew tried to recover, Keanu refused to let anger take root. Instead, he turned to Anna, brushing dust from her shoulder, and whispered, "Are you all right?" She nodded shakily, tears stinging her eyes. His only concern had been her, not himself. Later, when the chaos had calmed, Anna cornered him in the quiet of the back lot. Her voice shook with urgency. "You can't keep ignoring this. They're trying to hurt you." "I heard them. I heard him planning it." Keanu's eyes darkened with understanding, but his voice remained steady. "I know." Anna froze. "You know." He nodded slowly. "I've seen it building, I've felt it, but anger won't fix it. If I fight with pride, then I let them win twice. I'd rather carry the weight than pass it on." His words broke something inside her. She couldn't understand how someone could face danger with such humility, such quiet strength. But she also felt frustration. How could he sacrifice himself so easily? Why wouldn't he defend his own worth? The second twist arrived when she followed him later that night. He didn't know she was there. She watched as he left the set quietly and walked to a small park nearby. Under the dim light of a street lamp, he sat on a bench, his shoulders heavy. From his pocket, he pulled a worn photograph. Anna couldn't see it clearly, but she saw the way his hands trembled as he held it, the way his face softened with sorrow. His voice was low, barely audible, but she caught fragments. "I hope I'm doing it right. I hope I'm honoring you." Her breath caught. The truth began to dawn on her. His humility wasn't just a habit, it was a promise. It was tied to someone he had lost, someone whose memory guided him through every gesture of kindness. She wanted to step forward to ask, but something stopped her. Some grief is too sacred to touch. The next day, the sabotage escalated again. This time it was more subtle. The jealous producer began whispering into the crew's ears, planting doubts. "Look how everything falls apart around him. Maybe he's cursed. Maybe his presence is the problem." The poison spread, and Anna saw it in the glances, the quiet conversations that stopped when Keanu walked past. The betrayal hit hard. Some crew members who once admired him now looked at him with suspicion. The producer had twisted reality, turning Keanu's kindness into weakness, his calm into guilt. Anna's chest burned with anger, but Keanu remained unshaken. And then came the biggest twist yet. During a heated production meeting, the jealous producer spoke openly at last. In front of the director, the cast, and the crew, he said, "We can't afford these risks anymore. If accidents keep happening, we'll lose everything. Maybe it's time to reconsider if Keanu should even stay on this project." The room erupted. Voices clashed, some defending Keanu, others hesitating in doubt. Anna felt her stomach drop. It was the very thing the producer had been building toward, turning everyone against him. All eyes turned to Keanu. This was his moment to fight back, to defend himself, to expose the truth. But instead, he stood in silence for a long moment, then said quietly, "If you believe I'm the problem, then I'll step away. But don't let this divide you. Finish the work, tell the story." The room went silent. Anna's heart broke. She couldn't believe it. He was willing to sacrifice his place, his role, his pride, just to protect the unity of others. The crew watched in stunned silence as he walked out. Some were moved, some were confused, and some whispered that maybe the producer was right. But Anna knew better. She had seen the truth in his actions, in his late-night prayers of gratitude, in the photograph he held with trembling hands. And in that moment, she made a choice. She would not let his humility be buried by lies. She would fight for him, even if he refused to fight for himself. The storm had broken, but the true test for Keanu, for Anna, for everyone was still to come. The set was silent the morning after Keanu walked out. No one laughed, no one joked. Even the sound of moving props felt hollow. People whispered in corners, their voices low and uncertain. The absence of Keanu was heavy, like a missing heartbeat. Anna felt it most of all. Each step she took across the lot reminded her of his quiet strength, his calm voice, his way of lifting others without lifting himself. But under the silence, something else stirred: fear. The jealous producer now walked the set with bold steps, his smile sharper, his voice louder. Without Keanu, the crew no longer had a shield against him. He whispered commands, scolded freely, and acted as though he had won. Anna watched him, fury burning in her chest, but she also remembered the promise she had made to herself. She would not let Keanu's kindness be erased. The hook arrived during the afternoon meeting. The producer stood before the crew, his voice booming. "We have wasted enough time. From today, things will be run properly. No more accidents, no more delays. We finish this film without distractions." Anna felt the air choke with his words. She knew it wasn't truth. She knew the real cause of the chaos. And she realized in that moment silence would no longer protect anyone. She stood, her heart hammering, and said clearly, "Tell them the truth. Tell them how you planned the accidents, how you risked lives just to push him out." The room froze. All eyes turned to her. The producer laughed, dismissive. "Nonsense, she's emotional. She doesn't know what she's saying." But then came the twist. From the back of the room, a trembling voice spoke. It was the young assistant, the one Keanu had comforted after dropping the prop. His hands shook, but his words were steady. "I heard him too. He told someone to make it look like an accident. I didn't want to believe it, but it's true." Gasps rippled through the crew. Suspicion turned to shock, then anger. Others began to speak: a technician who had seen the producer near the rigging before the light fell, a wardrobe assistant who had noticed him lurking by the props. Piece by piece, the truth spilled into the open. The producer's smile faltered. His voice cracked as he tried to deny it, but the evidence was too strong. The director's face turned red with fury. "Get off my set," he roared. Security was called, and the man who had poisoned the air was dragged away, his shouts fading into silence. Relief washed over the crew like rain after drought. But Anna knew the victory wasn't complete. Keanu was still gone, and without him, the triumph felt hollow. She slipped away from the chaos and went searching. The twist came when she found him not far from the lot, sitting on the same park bench under the street lamp where she had once spied on his quiet ritual. He looked up as she approached, his eyes calm but tired, as if carrying a weight too long. "They know the truth now," she said softly. "He's gone, you don't have to carry it anymore." Keanu gave a faint smile, shaking his head. "It was never about me. It was about them. I didn't want this film or their work destroyed by bitterness." Anna's throat tightened. "But you would have sacrificed everything, your role, your name, even your safety." "Why?" He looked down at the photograph in his hands, the same one she had seen before. Slowly, he turned it so she could see. It was a picture of a woman, her smile gentle, her eyes filled with warmth. "She taught me," he whispered. "She showed me that kindness matters more than pride. She's gone now, but I promised her I'd keep living the way she believed in, no matter the cost." Anna felt tears sting her eyes. She understood now. His humility wasn't weakness, wasn't naivety. It was a vow, a living memory of someone he had loved and lost. The final twist came when she said, firmly, "You can't keep carrying it alone. Let others carry it with you." She reached out, her hand resting gently on his. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he nodded slowly, as if finally allowing himself to share the weight. When they returned to the set, the crew erupted in relief and applause. The director welcomed him back with gratitude, his voice shaking with regret for doubting, and something extraordinary happened. The same people who had once looked at him with suspicion now stood taller, united, inspired not by fear, but by the example he had set. The rest of the shoot transformed. Accidents stopped. Laughter returned. People treated each other with new respect, as if Keanu's humility had planted seeds in their hearts. And Anna, who had once doubted the truth of his kindness, now carried it within herself too. When the film finally wrapped, the crew gathered for one last time. As cameras were packed away and lights dimmed, Anna stood quietly, watching Keanu thank every person, from the director to the youngest assistant, treating each with the same respect. She thought of the journey they had taken, the sabotage, the betrayal, the danger, and the quiet strength that had carried them through. And she realized something that would stay with her forever. Greatness isn't found in power or fame or pride. It is found in humility and respect, in the choice to lift others even when you are the one under fire. And as Keanu walked past, smiling softly at her, Anna whispered to herself, "I couldn't believe it at first, but now I know." His humble gesture wasn't just an act, it was who he truly is. The story ended, not with a grand speech or a final battle, but with something far more powerful, the simple, unshakable strength of kindness.